Welcome to Bunch Formation. I am Chris Vannini, and I think maybe they had the better team last year too when we beat them, or maybe they had the better team when we beat them 55-19 in the national championship game.
When the smack talk is coming from 20 years ago, Chris, that's when you know. That's what do they say? Hit dog hollers. Anyway, welcome to Bunch Formation. I am Deion Sanders, and what you got to understand, Chris, is I ain't hard to find. All right.
There
Listen,
we go.
I'm a Halloween Scrooge. You know this, Chris.
Yes, you are, because I had to try to convince you to do something for this show.
This is as elaborate of a costume as we're going to get. These glasses, I think one of our bosses gave them to me for my coverage of the first year of Deion, and they've been resting on my shelves since then. So
yeah,
this is what we're going to get, Chris.
David is wearing the Deion sunglasses from 2 years ago. I am intrepid reporter Clark Kent, but secretly, I'm also Superman. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that. If you're not, you're just hearing us talk about random things. But it's almost Halloween, so I wanted to do this. I told David to think of something. He did it the last minute. Otherwise, it was going to look weird if it was just me.
Chris, do you know how many times I've been trick-or-treating in my life?
Like, including when you were a kid?
Yes.
I mean, I would hope it's more than 10.
Zero, man. Zero.
What?
I've taken our daughters like twice or 3 times because my wife is more into it, but not a trick or treat guy, man.
So, like, as a kid, you didn't do that?
No, my family didn't really do Halloween, and then like I didn't really care when I got older necessarily. And now that we have kids, like my wife wants to do it, so we'll do it. But and also not like a huge candy guy. Also, no.
Wait, when you're a kid, we're like and they have all the kids wear their costumes to school. You just dressed normally?
Yeah, I just never did. I don't know. We didn't. I don't remember having costumes at school. I just didn't really. I don't really like it.
I just can't believe as a kid when you see everybody else wearing costumes, you're coming to your house and asking for candy. You're not thinking, I want to be a part of that.
This is fascinating. It never really applied to me. We didn't really celebrate Halloween when I was a kid, and then just like I didn't really care about it. And
you don't acknowledge it. It's not part of your denomination, basically.
I mean, it's like kind of you could do whatever. Like I'm not like super opposed to it. Like we're not gonna let our daughters do like demonic costumes. I think my youngest is going as Pebbles from Flintstones, and then our oldest is going to be Rapunzel. So we'll keep it pretty straightforward. But like I don't know. I just never cared.
I'm glad your one kid knows about Flintstones. That's good. But this so you never did Halloween or trick or treating, but you also set off thousands of fireworks on 4th of July. Well, we're like complete opposites on this front, apparently.
I think legitimately I have probably dressed up for Halloween maybe twice. One was in college for like a girl that I was talking to that we were gonna go like hang out, and we went to that's you know how that goes, Chris. And then I think the other one was like in high school. I dressed up as Ruben Studdard after we went on the Jared diet. Neither of those things have aged that well.
that is, yeah, man. That is that one's a lot. Bring that back. It'll be a throwback costume.
I will say, Mr. Ruben Studdard, sorry, 2004, still a banger.
Yeah,
real ones now.
Absolutely. Folks, we got a big show today. We got Week 10 picks. We've got college football playoff elimination games. We've got governors trying to hire football coaches. We've got potential gambling changes within the NCAA. But I wanted to follow up on one thing also that we talked about. The sports bar conversation we had a couple of weeks ago. That clip blew up on social media. Like the Instagram is still getting all kinds of comments. And I mentioned on the last show that I went to walk-ons with Adam Rittenberg on Saturday in Baton Rouge. And they did a great job there of making sure the TVs were set. They changed things that we needed to. So not all sports bars are apparent having TV problems. So shout out to walk-ons.
Sports bars. Yeah.
And the other thing, I can't believe I forgot to say this as well, but I again got an electric rental car on that trip. I go up to the Avis in the New Orleans airport. I've asked for a compact car, and they tell me all we have is the Tesla. And I felt like it was almost like Seinfeld, where I'm like, that's not what I reserved. Like, why do you not have this car? And he said, we also have pickup trucks. And now I'm stuck between two very difficult things here, because usually I just try to get the smallest car possible when I'm going to a game, because you're in crowded parking lots and all this kind of stuff. I'd just give me a smaller car. So I'm like, all right, I'll do the Tesla, because New Orleans is only, Baton Rouge is only an hour away. So it's not that far. It's not like when I went to Baylor and that was like 3 hours and all that stuff. I get into the Tesla. This thing is totally different from the Hyundai electric car that I had. There are like
I have ridden in them for Uber several times. I've never driven one.
There are no buttons. Everything is on the screen, and I don't know how to get to half of it. I sat there for literally 15 minutes figuring out how everything works in the parking garage. Ultimately, I got it. And because it's a Tesla, it can charge a lot faster, and ultimately ended up being okay through the whole thing. But man, electric rental cars, like, that's a risk, man. If I had not done it the first time, I would have been a mess. But
I have an old man rant about air conditioning and radio settings in cars just being unnecessarily complex, because obviously Chris and our business, we have to rent cars a lot. And half the time I can't get the radio or the air conditioning to reliably work without using mental energy to be like, all right, how do we figure this out? Car companies, simplify it, please. I'm begging you.
Just give us buttons. We want buttons. Anyway, all right. Check out the show notes if you want to jump ahead to anything. We have timestamps in there, stories we talk about, other stuff. Send your emails to bunchformationpod@gmail.com. Appreciate all the feedback. We read all of that. We're Bunch Formation on all the social media. And apparently YouTube is now, I got a message that YouTube is auto dubbing all the videos now into other languages. So if you can listen to this show in a different language, I guess, let me know how it is. Cause I know a little bit of French, but I'm not doing that. I guess this is one of those new AI things.
What if I just spoke German the whole time and we dubbed the show in English?
How much German do you know?
None.
Oh, okay. Yeah, probably wouldn't go very well then. So, all right.
One way to find out.
Please leave a 5-star review, rating, and comment if you can. We try to read them all on the show because we appreciate the feedback and people saying nice things about us. Got a good one here from Applejack0531, who says, David and Chris, the show has been my one and only college football podcast this season, and it's given me everything I need. And y'all were early on my Bearcats being up this season before the Iowa State game. Yes, we were.
We've been on them. We've been on Cincinnati.
My question, adjacent to Cincinnati, you recently said that the Big 12 would be a one bid league after Texas Tech lost, but any of Texas Tech, Cincinnati, BYU, or Houston could meet in the conference championship at 11-1. Wouldn't both teams in the top 12? Wouldn't both be in the top 12, and so the loser would stay in a la SMU. Curious your thoughts, or if this is a year that a 9-3 Tennessee jumps an 11-2 Cincinnati. Thanks. Thank you, Applejack. David, I'm going to throw this to you. By the way, we do have a mailbag. We do have a mailbag section coming later in the show too, but I wanted to get to this one now. David, you just wrote a bubble watch on The Athletic and included the idea of a potential 4-bid Big 12 as like a path. Lay this out.
1, 2. So it's similar to the Big 12. I think I could and will are two very, very different things. The Big 12, I think, is generally stronger in that top 2/3, where the gap between, the number 2 team and the number 9 to 11 team is not that far. And so I don't trust any of these teams losing a game that we don't expect them to lose. You can only play so many games as a 4-point favorite before it's going to catch up to you. In the ACC, the standings are a mess. Nobody's really talking about ACC teams, but you have Georgia Tech, who's undefeated. Miami, who people have sort of branded as a disappointment because they lost a dumb game at Louisville, but that kept Louisville as a 1-loss team. And then also Virginia's floating around as a 1-loss team. Yep. And none of these teams play each other over the last month of the season. And so if you get an undefeated Georgia Tech, or even a 1-loss Georgia Tech who only loses to Georgia or beats Georgia, I guess it doesn't really matter, in the ACC championship game, then you would have, a champion that moves up, and then you have 3 pretty compelling at-large teams. Now, similar to the Big 12, I suspect those teams will trip up. The bad thing about that scenario is that I've watched ACC football before. I know how these things go. They're going to lose a dumb Friday night game. This happened to Florida State already at Virginia. We've seen it Miami losing to Louisville. nobody can seem to hold serve. And I think in the Big 12, we're probably going to see some similar things. So we'll see. I like Cincinnati, but, it's probably going to take an upset in either of those championship games to produce multi-bids.
So you have Texas Tech and BYU. Like, I think they're both top 15-ish, but they're not like top 5-ish. And they play each other, I think, next week, I think. And so someone's probably going to fall a bit. And I don't know if you'll have enough time to get it back. Now, you can make the case that they should be in that conversation for sure. But I think it depends kind of who you are. The Big 12 doesn't have any good non-conference wins.
That's the biggest issue. At least they didn't have it.
Arizona State lost to Mississippi State. Texas Tech didn't play anybody. Baylor lost to Auburn. Cincinnati lost to Nebraska. So that, I think, is going to hurt the league. But it emphasizes the point that, like, these conferences that are too big, it's impossible to have even schedules within them. And you're going to get really weird paths to the conference championship game. And how is that going to impact the playoff? We'll see, because we got lucky last year where only the Big 12 kind of had it weird. We're a 4-team tie. We may have a lot more like teams undefeated just didn't play each other this year, and that could be a problem. So
the good news, Chris, is that I've been screaming for since we moved to this is that nobody cares about conference titles anymore. Sorry.
We'll get to that when we get to conference championships. Disagree. Also, comment on Spotify from Shane E. wanted to follow up on the Grateful Dead questions we had on the last show. Shane said, the Grateful Dead night at Oregon was because of Bill Walton and celebrated in the old Pac-12. I looked this up, and I think that's only kind of true. So it turns out that the Grateful Dead played at Autzen Stadium 10 times, and they played on campus more than 20 times. And this is the 60th anniversary of the band. And so there's a lot of Grateful Dead just stuff being celebrated. So that is the connection to Oregon, which I didn't know.
I will say, after that show, I did go on YouTube, and I think I've heard a few of the songs, and I was listening to some Grateful Dead. With respect to Louisville,
By the way, it's Louisville. If they're going to be in the playoff at some point, you're going to have to start pronouncing it correctly. Damian Harris is not here to correct you every single time.
Yeah, this has been a several-year-long thing.
All right. Now we got a lot to talk about in the news segment, and to do that, we go into the media scrum.
That's why I don't read the newspaper, because it's garbage.
We're going to start with LSU, where just before we started recording, the governor, Jeff Landry, the governor of Louisiana, said in no uncertain terms that LSU AD Scott Woodward will not be hiring the next coach. That will be made by the LSU Board of Supervisors. He said, quote, I'd let the president pick the next coach before I let Scott Woodward pick him. So, only college football, baby, right?
LSU coach George Santos, baby. So I have a couple.
Let me give some background real quick. So Jeff Landry, very trying to tie himself to LSU football for personal reasons, for political reasons, whatever. He's the guy who made the tiger in the cage, the fake mic, come out on the field. I think it was last year for the Alabama game, and there was all that.
I was there. It was weird.
That was the governor really made that happen. They wouldn't even use the real mic for it. So, and he also tweeted during the Texas A&M game that the LSU board should reconsider raising ticket prices for next year, which the board had announced earlier in the week. So this guy likes to get himself involved. And the Board of Supervisors is appointed by the governor. And many of the people on that current board were appointed by him. So this just got very messy. David, what do you think?
So I think this is wrong in a couple of ways. One,
a lot of ways.
So one, obviously the Scott Woodward hire didn't go great. Obviously, he's also the same guy who hired Jimbo. He is
the Brian Kelly hire, you mean?
Yes, the Brian Kelly hire. Well, I'm talking about Jimbo at Texas A&M, and then he hired Brian Kelly. He did also hire Kim Mulkey. He did also hire Jay Johnson. So, the idea that Scott Woodward can't hire coaches is okay. I
agree.
It's that's a little overstated. Secondly, it feels insane for a governor to be tapping into a coaching search, but I actually think it does make some sense, and not even for political expediency, but if you're the governor of a state, if LSU has a thriving football program, that's a huge deal for the economy of the state. and it does make a huge difference on the the life and the quality of life across the state. So while I don't know that that's necessarily what's in his mind, I think like if you went and hired the next Kurt Signetti and you like are out front, like that's going to be very politically expedient for you. But also like I actually don't have that big of a problem with a governor like sticking his hand in a hiring process because it's so important for the state and especially for a state like Louisiana, which has kind of one flagship program. So it seems insane, but like, I'm okay with it.
It's what are you talking about? It's insane. Who do you think has a better grasp? Who do you think has a better grasp of the landscape and how you go about identifying and hire coaches? An athletic director who hired multiple national championship winning coaches at LSU in women's basketball and baseball. He's the one who hired Chris Peterson to Washington at the time too. Or do you think it's a governor who's doing about a million different things? Or
I don't think he's saying he's going to make the hire. I think he just wants to give it to somebody else who he trusts.
It's going to go to the board of supervisors. How many of them do you think have an athletics background and kind of know what they're doing? Like this is insane. Like you're an Arkansas guy. You remember when Bill Clinton, when Arkansas basketball was on that national championship run, was showing up in the locker room and doing kinds of stuff.
He's on the cover of Sports Illustrated, which is like kind of wild in retrospect.
Yeah, and he loved Arkansas, and most of that was maybe partly political, but I think he just genuinely liked it and thought it was cool to be there as part of the team. That's not the vibe.
He's been kind of MIA at Arkansas sports for the last like 20 years, but I find that it's suspicious.
They may not feel great. I don't think they feel great. I don't know how they feel about the Clinton family down there anymore, but we don't need to get into that. But so when I did the LSU job profile, I rated this job as an A. And under university stability, I think I gave it a B, but it was kind of tentative because we knew this Landry Woodward stuff was going on, and I'm going to have to update that. And that university stability line is dropping down to like a D or worse, like it was for Florida, because they don't have a full-time president right now, and now you're just cutting your AD off at the knees. Because if you're a coach, there's a couple of things you need to know for every job. One of them is, how much money do I have for the team? That is like the biggest question for a lot of things. Another question that's very much up there is, who is my boss? Who am I reporting to?
And who's the boss's boss?
That relationship is so important because that's the person you talk to when you need money for something or when you need help on this for a conferencing or this or that. That's the phrase alignment is maybe overused sometimes, but it's so important in these jobs because these are not pro teams where we're all just here for football and that's it. You have a lot of people involved in football who are not full-time in football. They're dealing with running a major university, which is a big deal in football. Now you throw a governor on top of that. That's the kind of thing where if I'm a candidate for that job, that makes me for LSU. If LSU is interested in me and I see the governor is basically running this thing now, I go, I may need to take a second look.
I think you're taking some leaps of faith. All I'm saying is I don't think he wants to be in there asking the questions. I just don't mind him having a hand in the pot. If he's the guy who's saying, I'm running the search, I'm interviewing all the people, I'm making the decisions, I'm with you. But I'm just saying, him saying, this guy who screwed up the last search that everybody hated, he's out. The board is in, who he apparently has appointed a bunch of these people.
Yes.
I just don't think it seems like a waste of time, but it has such an acute impact on the actual economy that like I'm actually okay with him sort of getting his hand in the cookie jar a little bit.
I think you say this too, because you're the one who wrote that story back in the summer, I think, about state governments or trying to basically make NIL stuff tax free.
Oh yeah.
Because you thought because the case you made was that it's good for our state when our teams are good.
Yes, and it costs. So the story was there was a bunch of bills being tossed around in like Illinois. I think Missouri was on there. I think Tennessee. There were a few that basically was trying to make NIL money tax free. And on its face, obviously the optics are terrible. But when you get into the actual money, you're talking about, maybe $300,000-$400,000 missing from a state's tax budget out of like hundreds of millions of dollars. and then the output of if that makes a difference, and Joe Burrow, instead of going to LSU, goes to Tennessee or wherever, or Missouri or whatever, like that's going to make a big impact. So like the cost benefit makes sense, even though the optics are as bad as they get, where you feel like you're idolizing sports. So anyway, same sort of deal here.
So in case this LSU search could go any which way now, obviously it was always going to kind of be unsure, but now that it's very much out in the open, it's going to be a very strange process. And we got maybe a month plus until they hire a coach because it's only October. So we will see on that. Moving to another story, the NCAA is delaying its ban on players making bets on pro sports. It was supposed to go into effect on November 1st. They have pushed that back to November 22nd because schools have 30 days from its passing, which was October 22nd, to rescind it if they get 2/3 member vote, is what the NCAA said. This also comes right as Greg Sankey sent a memo basically asking the NCAA to reconsider this. It's worth noting that the group within the NCAA that approved it had SEC input and all that stuff too. So it's not like this was a surprise. Everybody knew this was coming. And it just now with the NBA betting scandal, it very much looks like very bad timing. And sports betting is something that Charlie Baker has wanted to get a hold of for a while. You've had some interesting thoughts on this.
Yeah, like so obviously the situation at Iowa and Iowa State, was that 2 years ago? It feels like not that long ago. You had guys just like careers ending for putting like $15 bets on like Iowa women's basketball. And so I understand that the integrity of the sport, above all, you have to have that at every sport, at every level. I think my case is that an Iowa football player placing a bet on a team on campus, I don't think undermines that integrity. So yeah, I can see, like, I talked to some SEC coaches and ADs about this a few years ago when sports betting was kind of becoming a thing. And I asked them, like, this exact question, should they be able to bet on pro sports? And everyone I talked to act like it was a ridiculous question. And like, of course not. I agree it's probably not the best thing. And I think like the idea, I forget which coach said this, but like now players have more money than they ever do. And now they have access to, gambling on pro sports. It's probably not a good idea. I don't love that. But I also don't love if you put a $20 bet down on the Wizards to beat the 76ers or whatever, then like your career's over. Like these draconian punishments in the name of protecting the integrity of the game are overreaching, and that's unfair to me. So it's kind of an impossible spot here. I feel like where I come from is I feel like you probably do ban it, but you just make the punishments kind of soft, like I don't know, a half game suspension or something.
And that is what Charlie Baker has tried to do. He has already lessened the penalty, not he, but like he has helped push through the system to lessen that penalty since he became president. That was one of the biggest things because he'll say they don't want players who maybe themselves have gambling problems to not come forward because if they feel like if they do, they will lose all their eligibility. Like they want to create these spaces for players to be able to do that. It's legal in a lot of these places. Like it's kind of like the same argument with marijuana where it's legal.
Or even drinking. I think like if you banned athletes from drinking, like that's probably going to be better for everybody. But also like you get into some like but the optics issues and all that other stuff.
But the optics are terrible, not just because of the NBA scandal. There is an ongoing college basketball federal investigation that a lot of basketball teams have been tied up in, and you had a lot of players lose eligibility or already be gone for involving themselves in prop bets, like Eastern Michigan, Fresno State, I think University of New Orleans. Like it's going to come out soon. Like there's going to be a potential similar to that FBI press conference there may be something similar down the pipe here because it is ongoing. Even Sunday, the NCAA announced that the Eastern Michigan players wouldn't cooperate with the NCAA's own investigation about that. So I think ultimately you probably got to put this on the back burner for now, given the optics of it, and then just like come back to it. But this is the world we live in now. We don't have a betting sponsor on this podcast, but it's like everywhere in media. And I would have thought a lot of these high profile punishments would have deterred, and it really hasn't.
That's basic sociology, Chris. I do have a sociology minor. Like, you can look through the entire history of policing and the entire history of lawmaking. Harsher punishments do not deter actions. It just doesn't work. That never has worked ever. And so, like, yeah, I would beg these people, like, open a history book. Like, nobody thinks they're going to get caught. So it doesn't, harsher punishments do not deter offenses. It just doesn't.
Elsewhere, Michigan has dropped its appeal to the Connor Stalions investigation penalties. So it appears that may now be fully done. Sharon Moore has served out his suspensions. The fines and stuff are ongoing. Basically, Michigan withdrew its appeal, and so it appears we may finally be done with that. I don't think we need to get Connor Stalions back on the show to talk about it, but wanted to let that note there. I've got a story in The Athletic, went up on Tuesday, about Jon Sumrall, the coach at Tulane. I've talked about it a little bit on this podcast. I
want to grill you about this, Chris.
I encourage everybody to go read it. I'd written it before Brian Kelly got fired, so everything kind of amped up this week.
Mm-hmm.
But I found him to be a very, very fascinating coach. He's not at all what you think. He's a former linebacker, raspy voice, big kind of muscular dude. You kind of think, oh, this is just a guy who like yells at his players all the time and probably wants to call the plays. That is not the case at all. He is so into mental training, self-assessments and accountability, organization. He's got a fascinating mind. And I don't want to say he's going to win at his next job, because we never know where anybody is going to win at their next job. But I think I texted you this when I was sitting in a meeting with him when I was down there, which was, I sat in a Dan Lanning linebackers meeting at Memphis back in 2017. And I very much got Dan Lanning-ish vibes from Sumrall. Just a guy who kind of really sees the whole picture, is a very thoughtful person. And so I think he, with Lane Kiffin, Eli Drinkwitz, and all these kind of bigger names up on the coaching carousel, they will draw a lot of the attention. I don't know if LSU wants to hire the Tulane coach because he's the Tulane coach, but I think Jon Sumrall's name is going to get a lot of attention in this cycle, and for good reason. Now, what do you want to grill me on?
Nothing. A couple things. But I was down in New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl, the Michael Penix Texas Sugar Bowl. And John had just gotten the job, so I got some time to talk to him. I don't know him super well, but like we've had some lengthy conversations, and like I feel a lot of the same way that you do. Like his attitude in trying to take over that program and how he was going to do it. I just think in general the sport has changed so much that I think we were texting about this the other night. Like, how good are you at coaching football should probably be like the number 3 at best most important thing about a coaching hire. And I'm not sure, certainly not all ADs, but I think there's a good chunk of ADs who don't recognize that. But when you spent some time down there, what did you see that, in seeing him operate his program, that made you feel like he was a guy that was just going to continue winning at the level that he has so far?
So one thing is, like, at practice, like, he didn't yell pretty much at all, and he wasn't getting himself into every huddle and telling everybody what to do. And this was later in the week. He told me he kind of does that more earlier in the week, so it wasn't a full thing. But like, I expected a guy who's just like, you've probably been to practices too, where the head coach is on the loudspeaker all the time, telling everybody what we're doing, this and that. And he is very much learned to delegate and trust his assistants on kind of how to do that. And then his whole program, it's in the story, called Horizon Performance. It's this military consulting group about leadership or whatever. And the transparency and honesty about the way everybody feels about each other within a program. And like, hey, your teammates don't think you're reliable, so you need to get reliable. And so everybody knows where they stand, I think, in the program. And I found that really, really interesting. And this is a guy who, his whole life, he has lived to kind of challenge himself. When he was growing up in Huntsville, Alabama, he didn't go to the better high school. He went to the lesser high school and turned them into a winner. He went to Kentucky instead of Alabama, and he became the team's leading tackler by his last year. He didn't have to go to Tulane. He could have stayed at Troy and just kept it rolling there. He's like, I want to go to Tulane and see if what we do at Troy works at Tulane. There's some stories in there about problem solving and all this kind of stuff. But he's always been a guy like to just like he loves the challenge, and I have found that really interesting. So please check out the story. He tweeted it. So I tweeted it Tuesday. He quote tweeted it with a bunch of rat poison emojis. And which was very funny because I knew he was going to do that, because when I was there, he did the Sports Center stuff that day before they played ECU, and had a good time, oysters and all that stuff. Then later on, when he's in the team meeting, he uses that Sports Center appearance to like explain how everybody's trying to distract the team and disrespect them and all that kind of stuff. And so I told him after that, I was like, I look forward to you telling your team that my story is a bunch of crap and it's distraction, so don't worry about it. And so he tweets that, but he tweeted it, but he quote tweeted it. So he still shared the story. Even he's sharing it, even as it's rat poison, a very Lane Kiffin way to go about it. So I had a lot of fun. I really love just kind of when we get these opportunities in this job to sit in on a program for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Because you really get just a sense of like how it works. Like we all see what happens on game days, but you don't realize that like, oh, the director of football operations is like the most important guy on a team.
Yeah.
And you have to have all these people getting stuff ready for the players, doing all this kinds of stuff. These organizations are far more complex than just simply calling the play. And it's a good reminder of like, all right, like there's a lot of people here who are doing their best. And just because one player, can't make a throw, it doesn't reflect upon everybody on the team if it's not going well.
Yeah, these embeds are always interesting. I think I probably learned more about football in the 3 or 4 days I spent like living at Chattanooga's team facility in like 19 than I did maybe in 15 years of covering the sport. Basically, you just watch film, you see how teams operate, and like the rest of the time I covered Tennessee, I could call basically every play from the press box. I'm like, that's not good. I'm not a football coach. I shouldn't be able to do that. And it was telling for the rest of that Tennessee tenure. But hey, but it is interesting and it's fun.
All right. And with that, we're going to get to the mailbag. We haven't done this in a couple of weeks, but we have a couple of questions that are pretty timely. So let us go to the mailbag.
I'm not going to, so quit asking.
Sorry, Nick. First question here from Scott Buckley. Hey guys, followed you from until Saturday. Love the pod. Have always loved college football, and the pod scratches the itch. Is it just me, or are we dangerously close to a golden era of college football with NIL, an organized annual transfer portal, an 8, 12, 16 team playoff, defined 5-year eligibility for all? All we are missing is a return to geocentric conferences and divisions. National media contract. Okay, maybe that last part is a pipe dream. He said this in a couple weeks ago. The 5-year eligibility is not happening anytime soon. The NCAA said that, but I think there's something to this general idea where like everybody talks about how messed up college sports is, but the ratings are great on TV. The parody has been a lot of fun. I don't know about, it's hard to say golden era, but like, I think you and I have tried to say like things are a lot better than people try to act like they are.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was pro 12-team playoff, even though I would prefer the 8. But I think the positives have been even bigger than I thought they were. Like the parity of all this, and so much change happened at one time that it's hard to parse out. Well, this is because of this, and this is because of this. Because you have obviously the portal, and you have money, and you have the expanded playoff. So why don't Ohio State and Clemson and Alabama and Georgia have the same stranglehold that they've had on the sport? I think, you could, that's sort of a Rorschach test in some ways. But I think the last couple of years, I have enjoyed the sport as much, if not more, than ever. And I think the fact that we're sitting here, I mentioned this on our reaction show, but we're going into November and we still have 40-something teams that can make it. We're still laughing about the possibility of a 4-team bid from the ACC. Like, that's good for the sport. And like so many programs still control their own destiny. And I think having 60-something programs sitting there and say, hey, if we can just keep winning all our games, like everything we want is right in front of us. And maybe you will, maybe you won't. I don't know. But when you're sitting here at 6-2 in 2008 going into November, you're just not playing for as much as you would be now.
And I think a lot of these changes happened separately from each other. The playoff change was announced, the proposal was announced before we even had conference realignment. And when that happened, my reaction was, okay, Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State are going to win more national championships because they have more mulligans. But in exchange, we will get more teams playing for more playoff spots to keep everybody involved. And that trade-off was worth it. Well, then we didn't foresee NIL in the portal flattening the sport in the way we do. So that only made it more interesting. So kind of different things happened, and some were good, some were bad. I do think, maybe hope, that the singular January transfer portal could at least make it easier for everybody to follow, kind of make it all straightforward. We'll see if it plays out that way. We haven't had it yet. But I do think a combination of things, it's better than it was. And I think that's part of the reason you don't have such movement in Congress to pass the SCORE Act. We have to get this done, because I think the people against it are saying things look pretty good right now. I don't think we necessarily need to give you this, NCAA, but we will see.
Except for the lack of patience, which is an issue.
Well, that's the other thing. Now that we have the playoff, now if you're not making the playoff, you may have teams pulling the plug quicker. So there's that. Question from Lori from a couple of weeks ago, but it's about Virginia. She said, I had to share my perspective with you guys. I'm a hairstylist at a very fancy salon in Charlottesville, which is to say a normal place of business in Charlottesville. This is a weird town when it comes to sports. My clients are mostly the Charlottesville natives. UVA is small enough that this town sustains itself mostly on the hospital and old money and new finance type. I can't speak to the aura of the students, but I can tell you about the adults. They do not feel like they have arrived. They are just tickled pink about the win against Florida State, shocked and thrilled. They're acting like that game could be the only win of the season, and they'd be happy with that. The average fan seems to be entirely unaware UVA could actually make the playoff. The older fans seem torn. They have been against the concept of players being paid for years. Now that UVA has finally joined the rest of us in the new era of college football, and they're getting good results, they don't know how to feel. Thank you for indulging me, and thank you for giving me something to listen to on my breaks that isn't rich people complaining about having to choose whether to get granite or marble countertops.
There you go.
Thank you, Lori, for that long email. There's a great story on The Athletic right now by Grace Rayner. It came out on Wednesday about Virginia, and then off to a 7-1 start, and how, despite Tony Elliott being like 11-23 or something through 3 years, instead of firing him with a big buyout, they put the money into the roster. You get Chandler Morris, you get a couple of guys on the line, and now you're a pretty good team. And I think that's a lesson for a lot of teams here that haven't broken through, that maybe you don't need to just fire the coach. And Dave, you had something you wanted to talk about Virginia.
Yeah, so I think in general, the story that Grace did a good job of, like, and our staff the last couple of years has done this pretty intentionally. I've written about it a lot. Every story in college football now is a money story. The money has always fueled college football. We've seen it at Oklahoma State. We've seen it at Oregon. Obviously, the big programs have always been well funded, but it's less direct when they're buying you a new club, a new stadium upgrade, a new locker room, and like, well, this is going to sell recruits on us being there. The line between money and being good at football is more linear and direct than it's ever been. And so the places that figure out what is the best way in terms of the percentages, or those percentages are going to be different at Virginia than they would be at Oregon, for how much do we pay our coach of what we have? How much do we pay our quarterback? How much do we save on going and getting guys in the portal? And how much do we pay to keep our guys out of the portal? Everything is a money decision now in a ways that we have never seen in the sport. I think that story did a good job of laying that out and laying out the complicated arithmetic for, hey, if it costs us $12 million to buy this coach out of his contract to come here, And then we've got to pay him $8 million guaranteed. And then we've got to pay coordinators $2.5 million apiece to come be here. So then we only have $6 million left for our roster. Is that the right decision? Versus, hey, maybe we put $17 million into our roster, and maybe we can't get the biggest splash coach, but we can get a pretty good coach and some pretty good coordinators. And it all goes back to, Chris, Jimmy's and Joe's, not X's and O's. And like, places with good players can win. But then if how does that work? Can you get them there? Like, all of this is really interesting. And it just impacts the sport and changes teams from year to year in ways we've never seen before. And I think it makes the sport way more interesting. I feel like our site does a good job of writing about this. I've written about the money. We tried to break down how much money was in the rosters that made the playoff last year. People guard that information with their life. But I wrote about Ole Miss last year. I wrote about, I forget who else this year. I've talked to some people in South Carolina. That's gone kind of bad for them, but they had some money. I think they had 15, 16 million, something like that invested in this roster. So.
And I do think the places that do spend on the roster and then don't get the results are the ones that end up the most bad. Mm-hmm. That is LSU. That is South Carolina, like you said, where despite last year's success, there's South Carolina fans who want Beamer to leave, which kind of blows my mind. But nobody has any patience anymore, and that's kind of the new world that we live in. So,
and I think it's worth saying, I've been beating the continuity drum for a long time, and that lack of patience. If you're just constantly churning, I think a lot of people are going to waste a lot of money if they're just like, well, we got to throw money at this problem and this coach isn't getting it done. We got to get him out of here, get the new guy in there. I mean, you can see a lot of programs where if you got 5 coaches in, 10, 12 years, it doesn't go great. So,
and on the flip side, you get Penn State, which is maybe too much continuity. All right. And with that, time to talk about the Week 10 games, and we get into the game previews.
This is for all the Tostitos.
An update on the records. Last week, I went 5-3. David went 2-6. He followed up that 7-1 week with a 2-6. So tough. Mm-hmm. He leads. He is 47-38-2. I am 45-40-2. So just 2 games behind. Picked up a lot of ground after seeing it in 1 week. Also, real quick, there will not be a bunch formation after dark on Saturday because David will be at Tennessee, Oklahoma, which is a night game. So he will be busy with that. So try to get to those opportunities. Won't be able to do that this week. All right. Going to start off with where College Game Day is. No, not College Game Day. Where is College Game Day this week?
Utah, I think.
That's right. It's Utah. So it's not there. We're going down to Austin, Texas. And number 9 Vanderbilt at number 20 Texas, noon Eastern ABC. Texas is a 2.5-point favorite. Mm-hmm. And as of recording, Arch Manning is practicing, but also in concussion protocol. This line surprises me. What do you think?
Why does it surprise you?
That Texas is the favorite? The Texas, which had to be Mississippi State and Kentucky in overtime. 2.5-point favorite at home. Very interesting. Vanderbilt, they're very solid. They've gone up against some defensive lines that are pretty good and struggled a bit. They obviously struggled to move the ball a bit against Missouri last week. I think this is kind of a toss-up game to me. And in that situation, if you're going to give me 2.5 points, I'll take Vanderbilt there, especially if Arch doesn't play, especially. And not that Arch has been great, but if he's number 1, I think there's a reason he's still number 1.
You're out of the Matthew Caldwell business, Chris. Is that what I'm hearing? Listen, the lines are not made as predictions. They're made to color perception and get 50% of bets. And I think there's a lot of value here on Vanderbilt, who I think still is not respected by the computers, by the college football public at all. I think the ball knowers respect Vandy, but I think, a lot of folks still are not. I think Vanderbilt's defense has something coming for Texas's quarterback situation. Going on the road, I don't think this team will flinch. And are you prepared, Chris? If Vanderbilt wins this game, they're going to the playoff. It's
well,
it's done.
so if Texas loses, they're out of the playoff race. Technically, they're
Yes.
still in it, but if they lose, they're
Yeah.
out. This is where we get into CFP eliminators. If Vanderbilt wins, they've still got Tennessee to play.
They got Auburn and Kentucky, I believe, both at home, and then they go to Tennessee, where they can lose and probably still make the field.
I don't know. See, there may be so many 10-2 teams though that I'm not sure.
Chris, you have no faith in people to lose. It's November. Teams are hurt. There's a lot of pressure. Like, teams are gonna lose. Like, if you're sitting there and you're in the SEC at 10-2, and you have some of the wins that Vanderbilt does, you're not going to be left out. I'm
saying we may have a bevy of 10-2 SEC specific teams. That's the kind of
they're going to all get
in.
If they're all sitting there at 10-2, they're going to all get in. I'm sorry.
They're going to fit in with the 4-team Big 12 too. It's going to be
yes, exactly
25 teams for a 12-team playoff.
Give me Vandy here wins this outright.
I would agree. Big 10 game of the week ish, I guess. I had to put it here though. Penn State at number 1 Ohio State, noon Eastern. This is the big noon kickoff game on Fox.
How are there no good games in the Big 10 ever, Chris? I feel like they're all terrible.
Because there's only a couple of Big 10 teams at the top. In Indiana's remaining schedule is like 1-17 in conference games. Like and so we'll have to wait till we get to Ohio State. Penn State's got Indiana next week too, I believe. But Oregon's got the games coming up. Oregon's got Washington, USC, Washington, USC, Iowa still to play. So they will be tested.
That's like not great, but okay.
Ohio State and Indiana will not, other than Ohio State, Michigan. Ohio State's a 20.5-point favorite in this game.
Yeah, that's all.
Under James Franklin, Penn State would usually keep this game close because their defense is good. I think Ohio State wins this and covers. I think they might be even happy to run up the score on Jim Knowles, the former defensive coordinator who left. And I just don't think Penn State's going to be able to do enough to keep this all that close.
Penn State's been kind of a little bit of a wild card. Like, anytime you get this interim situation, you never quite know what you're going to get.
It's that, but it's also there's no Drew Aller. They're missing their quarterback. Of course. I mean, you still do have, Katron Allen, you still have Nick Singleton. Like, there's some pieces there. The defense might be able to slow them down, but I just don't think they're going to be able to move the ball. I can see it being like a 13-10 game at half, maybe something like that, but then Ohio State runs away with it in the second half. You think Penn State's scoring 10 on this Ohio State defense?
Yeah, fair, yeah. Like, maybe it could be like a 10-3 game at half, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know how Penn State's going to move the ball in this game. I mean, that 20 points, like, it's not going to be like a supernova where they just get haymaker. It's going to be the classic Ohio State. Like, the other team just can't move the ball. Eventually, Ohio State's going to break them. This feels like a 27-3 sort of situation.
Yeah, I think Ohio State, if there's anything that could trip them up, or at least when we get to the big games, things that they don't look perfect at, the running game is okay. It's not great. And they've had some special teams miscues quite a bit. It's not going to cost them this game, but when they get into an eventual big game down the road, those are the things I am looking for. Big 12 game of the week, where College Game Day is number 17 Cincinnati at number 24 Utah, 10:15 Eastern ESPN. This is going to be a late one. Utah, an 8.5-point favorite. That kind of surprises me. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, it feels like a trap here because I'm my head is telling me all in on Cincinnati here. Utah's been obviously shaky in some moments. I'm gonna stick with my head here and believe that Cincinnati's offense has enough juice. This might turn into like a surprising track meet at Rice Eccles, where can Cincinnati get stopped, but is Cincinnati's offense good enough to keep them in there? I just think Cincinnati plays this game close enough. They could win it. Like, I feel like there's some value on the Cincinnati money line here, but give me the Bearcats reluctantly, because I could see a situation where Utah wins this thing like 31-10. I don't think that will happen, but it's possible.
I just see a Utah team that absolutely demolishes inferior teams, but then struggles a bit more when the competition's a little bit better. You destroy West Virginia, but West Virginia's terrible. You beat up Arizona State, but they didn't have Sam Leavitt. You go to BYU and you suddenly don't look nearly as good as you did. You play Texas Tech, you don't look nearly as good as you did. So I think their resume is full of blowout wins against bad teams and then losses to good teams. And Cincinnati's a good team.
It just seems like it. Like I just looked at the data. 77% of the bets, 78% of the money is on Cincinnati. Cincinnati seems like the obvious pick here, which makes me want to fade the public. But I just think in this sense, like I just see it with Cincinnati. Like they're not the greatest team in the world, but like they're going to be a tough out for everybody. And going down double digits, even at night, even in that environment, I think they can stay competitive.
I do factor in Utah night game, Halloween. The environment's going to be really tough, but I like Cincinnati here. I think I might even like Cincinnati straight up.
Yeah, I would think about it. If you're ranking the teams that are more than a touchdown underdog to win, like Cincinnati most likely to win, I would say certain.
Yeah.
So
ACC game of the week, number 10 Miami at SMU, noon Eastern, ESPN. I will be there because it's local. Miami's a 12.5-point favorite. They presumably will not be wearing the god-awful camouflage jerseys, which I think we didn't talk about earlier in the week.
Rightfully so. We shouldn't have talked about them. Disgusting.
Among the worst I've ever seen. Like, for one, the only... Like, everybody... A lot of teams have done camo themes. You should not be allowed to do full camo unless you are Army, which did that once, and it actually looked pretty cool. That was stolen valor, pretty much, from Miami at that point. They're not wearing that. Also interesting about Miami here, this is their first trip outside of Florida all season. They will have gone all the way into November without leaving the state because they played at Florida State. And the temperature on Saturday here in the morning in Texas is going to be like mid-50s and overcast, maybe a bit of rain. I do wonder if that will impact Miami at all, being in that situation. However, for SMU, Kevin Jennings is still kind of very banged up. He's had the ankle injury. SMU's pass defense has not been great either. 12.5 is a lot.
Yeah.
What do you think?
This feels like one of those games where it's either going to go down to the wire or it's going to be a Miami romp. But just the idea of Miami going on the road and just demolishing like a pretty good SMU team. I mean, we thought that going into Florida State. We thought that going into the USF game. But I think SMU is better than both of those teams. And I think they'll hold up. I think this game is tight. It's just tough to go on the road and do that. Even though SMU, not the most fearsome environments, but I'm going to take SMU here nervously.
I'm going to take Miami just because I think they will be dominant enough in the trenches to kind of strangle SMU. I don't love it for the reasons I said, but it kind of feels like maybe this is a get right game. And if it's not, then I'm going to have big concerns about Miami. But outside of, the Louisville game and the first half against Stanford, this team's been very, very good. And I still think that team is in there.
Well, that's this is three of the last 4 halves they played, Chris.
That's the thing. But I think Carson Beck will be able to throw on this defense and they'll be okay. So I'll go Miami, but it's a lot. Group of 5 game of the week. Navy at North Texas. Noon Eastern, ESPN2. Navy is 7-0. North Texas 7-1. North Texas a 6.5-point favorite, partly because Navy is dead last nationally in strength of schedule, number 136. They have played nobody. This is their first kind of real game. But man, if I was not going to SMU Miami, I wanted to go to this game. They're going to put up a ton of points. The total is 65.5. Back in 2007, these teams played a 74-62 game, which is wild. North Texas, they put up a ton of points. They let Charlotte hang around for a while last week, but this is one of those like style games where it's like, does Navy really have that offense rolling where they just kind of strangle North Texas by keeping them off the field? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Navy, we're still running the option, but your boy Drew Cronick, like they have other stuff in their bag here as well. I mean, I like the over here. I don't know what the total number is. I'm guessing it's like in the high 60s, something along those lines. 65.5. Yeah, I would take the over there. I mean, I just think Navy, they'll keep it close enough. North Texas is not going to get enough stops in this game. I think some of that is like some of that baked into that line is the Navy skepticism of like, oh, this is the worst undefeated team, and that's probably true. But North Texas just can't get stops, and Navy will take advantage of that. I think Navy. I mean, I would sprinkle that Navy money line, but Navy they get this thing close.
I think if you're North Texas, you have to not turn the ball over. That's what really let the USF game get out of control. USF was able to run the ball pretty well on them. Who did you take? North Texas?
No, I took Navy to cover and maybe win, but I'm going to take them to cover.
I think I'll take Navy as well. I think North Texas is very, very improved, but I do need to see it a little bit more. And I think I have concerns about the rush defense and what Navy can do. All right. Number 18, Oklahoma at number 14, Tennessee, 7:30 Eastern ABC. David will be there. Loser leaves town. Loser is out of the college football playoff. Tennessee, a 3.5-point favorite. David, as the guy who's going to be there, what do you think?
I think Oklahoma didn't have enough horses in this game. They haven't looked great since Mateer's come back. Tennessee at night on Halloween, you're going to have spooky Rocky Top. You're going to have the dark mode jerseys. They're busting out. Tennessee,
I hate really those so much, by the way. What do you think? What do you think of the Tennessee dark mode?
Chris, come on. The dark mode jerseys look awesome, first of all. You really don't like those?
No, because I think the orange is awesome. Like they have
it is awesome. The orange pops with the black. And it's Halloween, Chris. Come on. I mean that part's more okay. The Halloween part of it, but spooky Rocky Top like 100 times in this game.
Is that a version of the song?
What'd you say?
Is Spooky Rocky Top a version of the song?
Yeah, we got to get you. We got to get you to Neyland, Chris. Have you been to a game at Neyland before?
I have not.
I mean, it's a spooky version of Rocky Top. It just sounds like it's happening in a haunted house, basically. You can Google it. Maybe we'll play it. Also, I don't know how many people are writing about this, but Seth Luttrell, former North Texas coach, we both know him, former Oklahoma offensive coordinator, on Tennessee's staff, also on Tennessee's staff, Landry Jones, maybe the most unappreciated Oklahoma quarterback of all time. That's kind of an interesting wrinkle. And then obviously Josh Heupel has sort of a check.
Yeah, I was going to say, who else is on Tennessee staff? Josh Heupel.
I mean, sure. But we kind of already did that. Like, they went back there last year and they won that game. It was a whole thing. But there's a lot of Oklahoma ties. And Luttrell is new on this staff. Landry is new on this staff. Landry's a good dude. Oklahoma just not enough horses. Tennessee wins this game pretty easily, I think.
That's the thing. And I think we saw with the Ole Miss game, I think some of those Oklahoma defensive numbers now look like they may be kind of part of the schedule that they've played. They have not played very many good offenses. And when they did in Ole Miss moved the ball pretty darn well. When Lane
the corners better strap up because Tennessee's going to chuck, and you better be ready for it.
Chug it deep. I'm taking Tennessee to win and cover. By the way, I think Tennessee's resume overall is a bit overrated. I can't believe they're number 14. They have no good wins.
Fine. I agree.
Their best win is Mississippi State, who's 4-4. They're only there because they started high and they played Georgia close and should have won that game. But other than that, they've done nothing and they got blown out by Alabama. They should be behind Louisville.
They didn't get blown out by Alabama. They got beaten soundly by Alabama
16
on the road in a game that they played poorly and had a pick six at the.
Oh, they played poorly. If they played poorly, that kind of changes, I guess, kind of how I rate the team. I didn't realize they were playing poorly.
I'm just saying it wasn't I didn't come away from that game thinking Alabama is another stratosphere from Tennessee. I think Tennessee played their worst game of the season on the road. They generally under Josh Heupel, Tennessee does not play well on the road, but they don't have to worry about that this weekend. Big Tennessee win here.
I think Tennessee wins as well, and the resume looks better. Number 13, Texas Tech at Kansas State, 3:30 Eastern on Fox. Texas Tech, a 7.5-point favorite. Baron Morton, quarterback, is going to play. Alex Hammond is out for the year. So he's kind of all they got. Morton. My thought is Kansas State about to pull a Kansas from last year, where they figure it out in the second half of the season? Because Kansas State has now won 3 of 4. And their only loss was a game-winning field goal to Baylor on kind of a wacky finish. But they destroyed Kansas. They've beaten TCU. Now Texas Tech's coming to Kansas State. I don't know. The momentum kind of feels like it's on Kansas State right now.
I just think Texas Tech's defense, the defensive line bows up here. I'm with you. K-State seems like they figured some stuff out a little bit. But the Big 12 is – I just think Texas Tech in terms of talent, in terms of just the team's quality in general is a different level than anybody that K-State has played during this resurgence. I mean, UCF is not very good. Kansas has been really disappointing. TCU is all over the map, but I don't think they're very good overall. I think just Texas Tech bows up here, wins this game big.
This is one of those, like, if Texas Tech blows out Kansas State on the road, I'm like, all right, they're back to not messing around.
And I think they do. I mean, I'm not in on this Kansas State team yet. Something's off with them. And I mean, this might be the best defense they've played. I mean, listen, the Iowa State thing at the beginning of the season, that feels like a million years ago. And that was a different Iowa State defense. But when Kansas State has played really good defenses, they've struggled. And TCU doesn't have one of those. Kansas certainly doesn't have one of those. UCF doesn't have one of those. Texas Tech does. That's the difference.
I'll take Kansas State to cover here because I think they've found something, and it's on the road. And Texas Tech's got the injuries that I'm starting to get a little bit worried about. But if you come through and play great,
I will say, the fact that I found out that Mitch Griffiths was still playing football last week was like wild. I thought he was been out of the sport for a long time. Apparently, he was laying concrete or something like this summer. I don't know. It's been a weird story. So,
all right. South Carolina at number 7, Ole Miss, 7:00 Eastern, ESPN. Ole Miss a 12.5-point favorite at home. I just have this here because it's like, does Lane Kiffin drop one of these games? He lost to Florida and Kentucky last year.
The Kentucky one was weird.
I think both were on the road, if I recall, but this is at home. 12.5 is a lot. South Carolina, they nearly beat Bama last week, but they also got destroyed by Oklahoma the week prior. Very strange week-to-week team. What do you think?
I mean, South Carolina, one of the better. What are they at? 3-4 now. They're one of the scarier. I think one of the scarier 3-5 teams that you'll ever encounter. Where it's like you watch them and you're like, I can see how they're 3-5. But then they'll have a couple plays where you're like, okay, like they still have. Dylan Stewart's been banged up. Lenore Sellers is running for his life. The offensive line is an issue. I'm curious if at this point of the year, Mike Shula is trying his best to coach around that. That's really hard to do. I don't know. I think they can keep this close. Ole Miss has just not been in the business of just destroying teams much this year. And even though South Carolina is sort of ripe for it, I think they can keep this within that 2-touchdown range.
You got South Carolina covering?
Yeah, reluctantly.
I'm gonna go Ole Miss. Every time I pick against Ole Miss, it doesn't work out well for me. I think Ole Miss wins handily and they take care of business.
Well, let me ask you this, Chris. How many conference games has Ole Miss won by double digits this year?
I don't know, but they were 5.5-point underdogs at Oklahoma. They won outright. They were 7.5 favorites over LSU and won by like 8.
They have won.
Kentucky was close.
0 games by double digits. They beat Kentucky by 7 on the road, Arkansas by 6 at home, LSU by 5 at home. Washington State, is not a conference game, but it is what it is. They lose to Georgia, and then they beat Oklahoma on the road by 8. So take from that.
It's why like I wasn't necessarily sure that Ole Miss was a lock because it's not like they've been running teams out of the building. Yeah. But
I like Ole Miss. They should be number 7, and also I think they're very overrated. If that makes sense. Like,
yeah, the resume is not that great, to be fair.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense, but I'm gonna say they get it all together. And
yeah, I think it's one of those where I'm fine with them being number 7, and they're not the 7th best team in America.
I think South Carolina also has a hangover from the loss of the Alabama game, and tough to bounce back from that. All right, number 15 Virginia at Cal, 3:45 Eastern, ESPN2. This is the luckiest team in the country in Virginia against maybe the most unlucky team in the country in Cal. Virginia just keeps getting away with it. And people just keep getting away with it against Cal. Did you see it going any other way other than Virginia going cross country?
These are like the 2 hardest teams to figure like in the country this year. I'm gonna lean. I don't trust Virginia as far as I can see them. And Cal has that weird habit of playing to their competition. So I think they definitely cover. I think Cal probably wins this game and ruins the 4-team ACC bid. Fantasy. By the way, even at 11-1, our Austin Mox model gave Virginia a 35% chance to make the field. He said he doesn't think. He's like, I don't think that's like. I think that when it comes down to brass tacks, they would, but that's just what the model says. So, yeah, Virginia no cover and probably loses.
I'm gonna go with Cal too. I think that the time difference and all that stuff. I'll go, or not the time zones and all that. I'll go with Cal as well for the upset. Number 5, Georgia at Florida, 3:30 Eastern ABC. Georgia's only a 7.5 point favorite. I'm kind of surprised it's that close. I know Georgia's defense has really struggled. I'm going to go Georgia covers. First game with Billy Gonzalez as the head coach. Although interim head coaches have been covering in their first games.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of the interim bounce. I mean, coming off the buys, always interesting. I mean, I've been riding Florida in these, like, it feels like their backs against the wall every single week. Like, they had the LSU game, that didn't work. They had the Texas game, that did work. I think they can keep this close-ish. I don't know why. But the cocktail party, I'm going to go reluctantly Florida to cover.
All right. Number 23, USC at Nebraska, 7:30 Eastern, NBC. USC a 6.5 point favorite on the road. This is kind of one of those like two teams whose toughness are kind of questioned a lot. Nebraska cannot stop the run. They barely beat Northwestern after getting demolished by Minnesota. I like USC's offense. I think they score a lot, and I don't think Nebraska can keep up. Going to go USC wins and covers.
No, I think Nebraska slows this game down. I don't trust USC. Lincoln Riley is confident. He seems to really like this team. But Nebraska can muck this up and put enough points on the board to cover and maybe win. USC on the road, I just don't trust them.
Yeah, actually, I take it back. USC on the road under Lincoln Riley is terrible, especially in the Big Ten. I'm going to go Nebraska covers as well. I changed my mind. Interesting one, Thursday night. Tulane at UTSA. I'm sorry. Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern, ESPN. Tulane's a 4.5 point favorite. However, UTSA is 23-0 in home games against American Conference opponents under Jeff Traylor. Jon Sumrall is 10-1 in American Conference games. Tulane's kind of been getting away with it too. They have been winning a lot of close games, even though they have wins over Duke and Northwestern. I just think UTSA is really, really kind of falling apart here. They're not that good.
Yeah.
I think they believe they lost to Temple. I don't, this is one I wouldn't touch in real life. But I'm going to take Tulane, but kind of reluctantly.
So Chris, when I was at American Media Days this year, Jeff Traylor went out of his way to talk about his team's super spiritual relationship with the Alamo Dome. He said he just watched the movie Avatar and compared it to the Navi and the home tree. The numbers support this. But I think this is a big win for pollution and deforestation. I'm going to go with roll wave here. Tulane wins and wins big.
Have you seen Avatar, by the way?
The first one, yeah. I didn't watch the second one. The first one was like, I saw it like in 3D in the theaters when we thought 3D movies were going to be the next thing, and it was fine. Whatever.
We got another one coming out, I think, this year. I like them.
There's a third one? I never saw the second one. There was like
they're making
whales
like
in the second one.
Yeah.
Did the second one make money? They're like the most expensive movies ever.
It made $1 billion. They are making another one.
I don't pay attention to movies that come out. This is part of having kids, and just we're not going to go to the theater with the kids at the age that they are, and also just being
not going to go you're not going to go trick or treating. Not going.
No, we're going trick or treating. We're taking the kids trick or treating. I'm not going to dress up, but we'll take the kids. It'll be all right.
All right. Quick hot seat. 2 games here. Wake Forest at Florida State, 7:30 Eastern, ACC Network. Florida State is a 9.5 point favorite here.
That's a big number.
I cannot understand. I'm taking Wake Forest.
Yes.
I just out of principle, maybe Florida State is amazing now. And Tommy Castellanos, who is still apparently banged up. I don't know why this line is so big. Wake Forest has been getting better and better throughout the season. They just beat SMU. I'm taking Wake. to cover.
I just checked
Mike
the data on it. 80% of bets, 80% of money on Wake. Wake, the obvious pick here. This is going to be a they don't build those casinos on accident type of game where I think the sports book makes a bunch of money here. Give me Florida State for no other reason than that the data tells me that fading the public is the play here because it doesn't make sense. I'll take Florida State.
Don't lose this game, Mike Norvell. They really want you to get to 7-5 so they don't have to fire you and make the money. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Kentucky at Auburn. Auburn, 7:30 Eastern, SEC Network. Auburn, a 10.5-point favorite. Does the quarterback change fix things for Auburn? Auburn pretty much can only... I'm going to take Kentucky to cover because every Auburn game is a one-score game pretty much. I think it'll be ugly, but I think Auburn wins, but I think Kentucky keeps it close.
Yeah, I'll say this with having done no reporting on the issue and that I didn't realize it until last year. Why did Ashton Daniels leave Stanford? That seemed like a good situation for him, and he played pretty well last year. Like, he's a good player. So, I don't know that that's much of a drop-off. Kentucky's been a weird team. Like, they keep scaring teams, but then you watch them and you're like, this team stinks. But I guess I'm going to go Auburn against my better judgment here. At home, on the road in the SEC. Kentucky, I don't think it's going to be going on the road knocking off, decent teams.
Google's telling me that Ashton Daniels got benched at some point last year, and I think he's also from Georgia, so it also got him back close to home. Apparently that's it.
I don't know. I thought he looked pretty good at a lot of moments last year, so whatever.
FCS game of the week. Sacramento State at I think it's Eastern Washington. I have this here because Sacramento State, we haven't talked about them in a while. They are
okay. Yeah.
They're 4-4 overall, 2-2 in the Big Sky. Mm-hmm. They started ranked. They're not ranked anymore, I don't believe. But their president, so they've had, I just saw this comment from Coach Brendan Marion. Basically thinks that a lot of calls are going against his team because of what they've said. That the president said the Big Sky was JV. They've talked about wanting to be FBS next year, even though they haven't really made a schedule yet. But apparently,
it sounds like Nebraska and Texas A&M leaving the Big 12. I'll tell you that. That's what that sounds like.
Apparently, Sacramento State has been flagged 72 times in conference play. 8 touchdowns have been called back. And here are some of the comments from Marion. Quote, comments were made in the summertime that did not reflect our program or me making the comment. I think everybody took that comment to heart and really has ran with it. It's been disheartening to our program and players that we get labeled an undisciplined program from the standpoint that every program we play becomes the most undisciplined team in the country, and we end up being 10-1 in penalties in every game. Later on says, we have seniors getting looked at for the NFL. They return a kickoff for a touchdown and we get a call. We've had 8 touchdowns called back. Any other program I've been a part of, we don't have to deal with this. People are upset about the comments and have a human element to them where they want to make us pay for those comments. It's a pretty stark.
Yeah. I mean,
there.
Listen, Brennan, I know Brennan a little bit. He's going to say what's on his mind. So, yeah.
I'll just say that I think further comments are not helping. I think the way Sacramento State has handled itself publicly is not helping them convince the people they need to convince to let them into FBS and whatever. So we'll see. But Sac State, Eastern Washington, what's your pick?
Are they playing this on the red turf? They are.
Yes.
What is the line?
I don't know. It didn't have it in. All
right, I'm going to go with the red turf. It's simply because it's going to mess up everyone on Sacramento State's rods and cones. So give me Eastern Washington.
I'll take Eastern Washington, and I'll say Sacramento State gets 3 more touchdowns called back on penalties in this game.
Does Eastern Washington, is their program motto, the floor is lava? If not, they should lean into that.
I don't know. All right, highest and lowest totals over-unders of the weekend. The highest, 67.5. Mississippi State at Arkansas.
Yeah.
Arkansas is a 4.5-point favorite. Bobby Petrino's been keeping them close, but not winning games or stopping anybody. Do they hit the over? I think they do.
Yeah, I think they do. Mississippi State wants to play fast. Arkansas has been pretty effective. Is Taylor Green banged up? Both these teams are 0-4 in the SEC, but they're like, you watch them and you're like, these are not terrible teams, but they can't win a game. So somebody's got to win it, but I think it goes over. I guess I'll take Arkansas to win it.
Lowest of the weekend, 40.5. Central Michigan at Western Michigan. Big time rivalry there in the MAC. Western Michigan also a 4.5-point favorite. I'm going to say they go over the total of 40 and a half. What do you think?
I will also take the over here and give me the Broncos.
I'll take Central Michigan. All right. And with that, we're going to end this podcast the way we always do, and that is by remembering some guys.
It's better than this. Guys being dudes.
And since I'm going to an SMU game on Saturday, decided to kind of think back. Since we have SMU and Miami, two of kind of like the big defining programs of the 80s, I'm going to go former SMU quarterback Lance McElhaney. The guy was pitching the ball in that Pony Express backfield. He was a part of it with Eric Dickerson and Craig James. Won a lot of games, beat Texas on the road. Still around the SMU program a lot. I've seen him and talked to him here and there whenever I'm around there. But man, it would have been so cool if SMU and Miami of the 80s played each other. You watch those old 30 for 30s and you realize, oh, it's Miami versus Oklahoma every single year in the Orange Bowl because that's the Orange Bowl. We didn't have a playoff and all these things. And sometimes you didn't have the best teams always play each other. Imagine, I don't know if they overlapped, but imagine if Eric Dickerson had gone up against like Brian Bosworth or just some of those guys they had. That would have been cool. We didn't get that. But Lance McElhaney's my guy.
That's old school. I'm going a little bit more new school. I'm going back to Tennessee. I was thinking about Tennessee. I'm going to go with Josh Dobbs. Very fun player. Rocket scientist. Also just like a good dude. I've spent a decent amount of time around him. Before I moved to Knoxville, when I was still freelancing for Sports on Earth, nobody had written about like just the fact that he has alopecia and like he looks different than a lot of other people. And so I talked to him and his family just about that. Great story. His mom had some disease. She's in a wheelchair, and he learned a lot from his parents. And he's a good dude. And then a few years ago, I spent the afternoon building rockets with Josh and a bunch of third grade girls. It was very fun. Josh is like a great dude, great player. He's still hanging on in the NFL. He's made he's won some games there.
Yeah.
Sort of like he's on that Chase Daniel path where like everybody in the NFL seems to respect him, and like he seems to be a very valuable backup. And when he gets his chances, he seems to cash in on those things. So shout out to Josh Dobbs. Fun player, good dude.
And from listener Marley, we have remember some dudes. Darren Thomas, Oregon. He was the quarterback, I believe, for the championship game where they lost to Auburn. I always remember number one. I just remember the number one jersey. When I think of him, I think of him wearing white jersey, black pants, number one. Like I have a specific Oregon uniform when I think of Darren Thomas.
All right. There you go. By the way, you can read that Josh Dobbs Rockets story on The Athletic if you just Google it.
Yes, I'll try to remember
it in there.
I'll try to remember to put it in the show notes.
It was fun. It was fun.
So Lance McElhaney, Josh Dobbs, Darren Thomas, 3 quarterbacks. We remember you. Send your nominations to bunchformationpod@gmail.com. We've still got a good list, but always happy to take some more and get to them. That's going to do it here. I'm looking forward to trick-or-treating. David will apparently not be.
I will be. I told you we're taking our girls. I'm not going to dress up. We'll be walking around. It'll be fun.
See, I don't have kids, so I don't take anybody trick-or-treating, but I make sure to put candy out. We're putting Reese's peanut butter cups and Starburst and Skittles. Those are the ones. I wanted to be the house that's like, all right, the house that usually the house that has the Reese's peanut butter cups, that's the one you go to more often. Like you look forward to that, right? I can't even have this conversation with you. I can't even ask you what's your favorite Halloween candy. You just have no thoughts.
No, I'm a big $100,000 guy. Twix is solid.
Underrated, very underrated. $100,000.
Not a big candy guy. My wife likes
not anymore because we're 35 years old. But I'm like,
yeah, but there's still candy fiends among us at our age. I'm not in.
Well, I hope for the best of candies to your kids on Friday night. It's going to be fun. We'll see if any coaches get fired this weekend. We'll be back on Monday's show. No After Dark because Dave's at a game. We're both at a game. But that will do it here. So for David Ubben, I'm Clark Kent. We will talk to you on Monday.
And, of course, bring back the turnover chain. Please.